Esri Dax is a member of the House of Martok. Keiko O'Brien whipped up some crab rolls for Bashir, and Colonel Kira does her best Luarin impression. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 22 already, entitled Tacking into the Wind, written by Ronald D. Moore, directed by Michael Vehar. This was May 12th, 1999. Where were you? We have a very special guest today, Luarin herself, Kitty SWINK.
Hi.
Hello, hello,
Yay.
hello. Awesome. We've been waiting 173 episodes to have you. Or is it 170?
Yes.
Well, no, 22 of season 7. That's what I got.
Well, you also got, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but you also got season 2, a season 2 episode. What was that? It was like season 2, episode 9 or 10, I think. Yep, Sanctuary. There it is. Sanctuary. Anyway, what were you saying, Cirroc?
I was so happy when I saw you on the screen. Right away, I just lit up like, hey, wait a minute, that's Kitty.
We know her.
Yes.
Well, I'm one of your aunts, basically, Cirroc,
You are. And, for people that don't know how special and wonderful you are, let me elaborate. Kitty is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. I have never heard anyone say anything bad about her as long as I've been around the business. And I think you have a heart of gold. Armin is an amazing guy, but even he has to live in your shadow. Even he has to live in your shadow because you are so amazing, Kitty. My mom loves you dearly. We all love you so much. Oh. And you've been there for so many people just as a real nurturing and caring person in your life. So I want to say that to you directly so people understand, where I'm coming from when I see you and how I feel about you.
Oh, I feel that way about you. You're part of my family. You always will be.
You've always treated me like that. And I think that's one of the great qualities that you have is that you are so nurturing and you're so loving and caring and compassionate, which is kind of the exact opposite of the character you're playing.
What a segue. There it is. What a professional.
Secret evil bitch is what you're trying to say?
Yes. The Vorta, as we know, are, they're not friendly and they're cold-blooded. And I think that's such a contrast from who you are. So it was so fun to watch that.
Mm-hmm. The day I went into audition, Armin and I ran into Jeff Combs. I can't even remember where. And I said, Jeff, you're the famous Vorta. What do you have? Give me a hint. He said, well, be obsequious. And then every once in a while, do this with your eyes. You may notice that a couple of times during the scene, I pop my eyes open.
Yeah.
Because he said, it'll freak people out. I said, okay. And I got the job. There you go. So it was. And then when Kira did her Vorta, her Luarin version, Armin said, "Oh, she's not as evil as you." It's not as evil. Mm-mm.
No, she's not. She was way too nice. I think she gave a greeting or something. You were not giving out greetings.
And everybody at home, if you're like me and we're like, wait, obsequious. That was middle school, but I don't remember what it means. I got your back. I looked it up.
Okay.
Obedient or attentive to an excessive or servile degree. That is a That's very Wayun thing. Yeah, that's perfect. And I was watching you and trying to figure what you were pulling from to play this character, because we've seen a lot of Vorta, and they do have kind of a common thread, but they're all very different from one another still. And you clearly played that. Like, you were a Vorta. It was clear you were playing a Vorta, but you were your own Vorta. You weren't just doing a Jeffrey Combs' impression because he's been in 20 episodes. You said, okay, I got it. I understand the kind of character he played, and here's my version of that. Can you tell us a bit, if you remember, what that process was like? Were you deliberately trying to create your own character, or is that just something that happens naturally when you just start performing?
I just think you always, actors, if they're smart, bring themselves to the party. That's how I describe it. You always walk in the door with some part of yourself. And in my life as an actor, but also as a union activist, as a civil rights and feminist, I have often had to put my ego in my sneaker to get what I wanted. And so I thought, well, she's going to put her ego in her sneaker to get what she wants. And so that's what I tried to do. I tried to find a way to make myself a Vorta instead of make a Vorta myself. I think that's what does that make sense? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's true whether I'm playing a Bajoran or a Vorta or a Russian countess or a Southern poor working class person. You bring yourself to the party. That's the process of being an actor. Yeah.
Did somebody say Bajoran? There you are as Minister Roseanne, I think it was.
Yeah. Also an obsequious bitch, by the way. I just would like to say that.
Wow. I remember this. This was right. So this was season 2, episode 10, so long ago. And then we had to wait 5 more seasons to see you again. But I remember you nailed this as well. Were you kind of auditioning over and over again for Star Trek? Were you trying to get in, or did you think, that was my episode, that was my thing? Because a lot of actors that even don't know anything about Star Trek, I remember this a long time ago in like a theater class or an acting class, there were a bunch of actors talking, giving us advice and notes, and they all said, Star Trek is like a rite of passage. Like they're like, eventually you're going to get in a Star Trek audition, or you're going to get a Star Trek role or something like that. Did you feel like you were going to get a second episode at some point, or was that it?
It didn't occur to me, and then I got the call to come in, and I went in. I mean, I usually play. Oh, I'm sorry, my leave me alone phone. Shut up. I usually play doctors and lawyers and judges and stuff on television. So, or did for a long time. I actually started my television career by playing a hooker I was a hooker on a soap opera for a while.
Okay.
It was an entirely different part of my life. It didn't occur to me much about Star Trek, except Armin was there every day, and I would come visit the set. And if I was shooting something on the Paramount lot, Cirroc will tell you I always come by for a visit. So that was nice, but it wasn't my thing. There was one part I wanted to be Armin's fiance at the Klingon, but I did read for
Rilke.
that. Yeah, Rilke. But they hired somebody who was really great, and it made perfect sense. And although the Klingons are quite tall, which I am, they also tend to not be scrawny, which I am. So perfect sense. I would not have cast a whippet.
I wouldn't say scrawny. I would say petite, but
Fit. Come on, scrawny.
Yes, in great shape, in slim and slender. What was your feeling like watching this episode after all of these years? What was going? Yeah.
Well, because I don't enter until over halfway through the episode. So what I thought was fascinating was how many wonderful guest stars there were, and how many series regulars gave really good performances in this particular episode. There's just one sort of stunning scene after another of excellent acting. Like Nikki does a scene with Michael that just was like, oh my God. And Michael was genuinely funny some of the time, and all of the Klingons were on fire, I thought, and it just was really fun to watch. That's what I thought watching the episode. And then I came on, and I'm in a sea of people who are friends of mine in that scene. Andy Robbins is one of our closest friends. He's probably directed me on stage more than any other director, except
really
another, yeah, because we were part of the Matrix Theater Company together, and then we worked around the country, and John Vickery, who I can never say his name unless I say John Vickery, was there, and I know, because when I first met him, he was sort of the young leading man of the New York theater scene, and so he was always quite grand. And Casey, who I played his wife in a movie of the week, we played husband and wife lawyers. What a surprise! And so it was fun. I was surrounded by people that I loved, so that I remembered what a splendid day it was, and that we ended at 3:00 in the morning, and I still had to get out of my Porta makeup.
Oh my! Do you remember what day of the week it was? I hope it wasn't a Friday, a Friday day.
I don't remember. I don't remember what day it was. That's a long time ago.
I thought it was clever that the way Ronald Moore wrote it, it was that the founder that comes in that you acknowledge. And by the way, one of the things I thought you did exceptionally well as your portrayal of the Vorta was the balance between the superiority that they resonate and also the subservience to the founders that they resonate. Right? The obsequiousness of it.
Of course.
So the balance there, and I thought that's the Vorta right there. I thought you really captured that spirit of how they balance and navigate through that. But as far as the writing, I thought it was clever for Odo to pretend to be one of the founders and come into the room in that moment. And as I was watching that scene, I was thinking of Renee, and you're having the chance to work with all of the people, like you said, that are your friends, but yet Armin isn't in this episode at all, and so you didn't really work with him. And I thought that was also kind of funny that you're scheduled to be on the set on days that he's basically not in this episode.
Was that by design, Kitty? Was that in your contract?
We were trying to keep it separated. Armin and I worked together a lot, but never on Star Trek. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I was a recurring character on one show where he came to do an episode where we were both working the same day, but not on the not in the same scene. We just, where we are sort of at home, we never seem to work together, except at PS, which is the theater that I used to be the artistic director of. We sometimes work together, which is divine. I love working with him. He's the best.
Who doesn't? God, what an angel.
Yeah.
And genius. And Cirroc, I know what you were thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. When Kitty's character shows up, really kind of chewing up the scenery, we're really getting into it, and then she's dead, and we're like, wait, we were just getting into this new character, and you kind of get the feeling, even though I've seen this before and I remember seeing it a long time ago, but I still felt like I was being led to believe, okay, we're establishing this new character. Ooh, this is an interesting Vorta. Oh, she has her own type and feel and personality and angle to her. And then wait, that's it. And I was expecting and feeling like there should be, more of you for the next few seasons. I don't know if Cirroc, you felt the same way, but I feel like we all kind of did when we watched it.
But there are no more seasons. There was 5 episodes after that one. So yeah, but
you would have taken it.
There are new Star Trek shows, and you can replicate Vorta. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Once they get the replicator back online, it's a little it's not functioning properly right now. But
I have to say that. Wait, I just wanted to say the one other thing is it was hard to watch Renee's character fall apart.
Man, I thought the same thing, and it must have been so difficult for the two of you, having watched that, being good friends of his. But when that scene came up, and we're going to talk about that a little bit on the second segment, but I was like, God, that must be so hard to watch.
Well, he was the model for how to end your life, in terms of how the sort of grace with which he ended life, talking to everybody every day and emailing and being funny and living every day he was alive. But then watching this deterioration on camera was tough. Yeah, it was hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his kind of character almost emulates who he is as a person, in the way that he had this pride about how he wanted to go out. And I thought the scene between Andrew Robinson and him was like one of the best scenes in this episode. It was when he says to him, I don't want pity from the girl that I love, from the woman that I love, so I definitely don't want pity from you. And I was like, wow, that scene I was moved by it. And actually watched.
It's gone.
Okay. Actually, watching this episode, one of the things stood out to me was the eyes. And I think all of you in this episode, from the Klingons to your character, really expressed so much with the eyes. And I was really captivated with the eyes. I don't know if Mike Vehar was choosing to do more close-up work, but I felt like he was capturing a lot of the emotions in the eyes in this episode.
There were a lot of close-ups, weren't there? It was fascinating how many close-ups there were. And I just think if you're under all that stuff, the thing that you can use is your eye. I mean, if the eyes are the windows to your soul, in this case, that's the only window you've got. So I think we were all using that a lot. I mean, I purposely used it a lot, partially because of Jeff's funny comment, but also because it just worked with that.
It works.
Also, I had blue eyes, which is how to have purple blue eyes when you go through life with green eyes is kind of a trip. You become entranced with them. But yeah, it was. And Ron wrote a script that sort of begged for people to come in close. It's a fantastic script. He really wrote a great script.
Yeah.
He always does, doesn't he? We're always singing that guy's praises. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's magic, and he's magic for actors, and I'm sure you felt that way when you did his scripts too, Cirroc. But you just could kind of fall into them. They allow you to be human, no matter what sort of alien form you're taking. He demands that you be human, and I think you're right. The eyes do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and his ability to capture what he wants to say with the language. I think his words are just beautiful. The dialogue that he comes up with is just fabulous. What was, now this is season 7, what was the feeling like in the household now that you're 7 seasons in, 22 episodes, it's all wrapping up? Was it like, okay, this is taking its toll on our family, and the work that has been put in has been exhaustive? Or was there like a celebration of we get to finally unwind a little bit? Or was there a sadness that this thing is ending? How did you kind of approach it as a household?
I think it was all those things. It was all those things. Carmen was doing Buffy at the same time, and I was doing a show called Total Security. So we were both working. Armin was sometimes working around the clock, and I was did some episodes of Total Security, but I was trailing the directors. So neither of us were ever home. So it was nice at the end of that to have that breathing room to see each other again. We have a long marriage. So even at that point, it had been a long marriage. But we probably have been married 20 years over 20 years at that point. So, 18 years. We've been married 18 years at that point. But I also think you're leaving your friends. You're not gonna, we saw you guys all the time, and then we didn't see you all the time, except Renee and Dorney. But it was hard. It was hard to let that go, I think. But it was also, what's the new adventure?
What's the new adventure?
Well, Kitty, so you played a Bajoran and you played a Forda, which are two very different alien types. Let's say Star Trek Picard calls you, or an animated show like Lower Decks, and they said, we want to have you back. What kind of alien would you want to be?
Whatever alien they want me to be, I'm happy to be.
And they say, but no human. We like the way you do aliens. any kind of alien.
Well, I'm obviously not going to be a Ferengi because, as we have already just decided,
way too tall.
So I'm shrunk, but I'm still not that short. So, whatever comes up. There's part of me that would like to be a Borg, just because there's something fascinating about that kind of. I'm so not regimented that it would be fascinating to me to be part of the collective. I love being a Borda. I like being a Bajoran. I'd like to be sort of anything. I think it's just interesting to explore humanity in whatever form it takes, and that's what these characters do. I did one of the games like a bazillion years ago, and I played a couple of different aliens, and it was really fun to switch back and forth.
I saw that actually. I saw that on your
one of the Star Trek games.
Yeah. She played a few different characters, though, right?
Yeah, and Paul Lighting, who was in the booth right before me, he's the one who did. I don't know if it was Deep Space Nine. He did one or two of the other shows anyway. He was in the booth right before me, and they asked his first character up was a Borda, and they said, and the director, who knows us, said, "Do you know anything about Borda?" I went, "Oh yeah." So
yeah, it says here you did the voice for a Bajoran officer. Okay, that checks out. A Vorta, and also a character named Kijana. But I don't know. It doesn't say what that is, but that's three very different character types, one would assume.
I'm a character actor. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, especially because Star Trek has got a lot of theater actors traditionally, and theater actors are allowed to be more mutable than other people. We get to shift and switch and be other. In television today, they want you to be who they think you are, not necessarily who you are, but who they think you are. So it's more fun to get to be a lot of things. Like, I'm looking forward to Cirroc playing. What am I looking for?
I want him to be a tall Bolian. That's what I want to see him in Star Trek. Blue bisected head with that ridge right there. Nice barber Bolian.
Kitty, were you curious and reading all the scripts during the filming of the show? I mean, I know you were always on the set and I would see you all the time, but were you also like following the story, keeping track of what was going on? And you mentioned auditioning for Grilka, and I mean, were you reading scripts and like kind of up to date with the storyline?
At the time the scripts came out, you guys had already cast them, so I didn't do it that way. I was definitely running lines with Armin, so I was reading a lot of it because I was running lines. Because that's kind of what you do when you're a spouse, is you run a lot of lines.
Teamwork.
Yeah. It depends on how busy I was. If I was really busy, I wasn't reading scripts. If I wasn't busy, I read scripts. I like to read scripts because it tells you about craft. There's so much to learn about craft by watching a DP and his gaffer light a set, or reading a script, or running lines. There's so many ways to learn about what we do, and so I would dive in when I had time. But as you know, I'm kind of always ridiculously busy. So.
Kitty, we only have a couple minutes left with you, and by the way, we totally appreciate you jumping in with us because you are always so busy. So we really appreciate that. But I want to hear a little bit more about you reading scripts. Do you remember anything specifically at all, or even generally at all, from just reading the various snippets of Star Trek scripts through the years? Was there anything that really you kind of hung on to?
I loved the Deep Space Nine. I was always sort of enthralled with the sense of social consciousness, which in a sort of macro level, lives through all of Star Trek. But at that time, Deep Space Nine sort of had a bigger arc on social consciousness than I think the other shows did. And because way ahead of its time, it was a show that was telling stories over 5 or 6 episode arcs. You could really dive down deep. And instead of these bottle shows, you were diving down deep into stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was impressive. I remember Armin reading the episode Far Beyond the Stars and handing it to me and saying, you have to read this. This is extraordinary. And reading that, I probably a lot of people don't know this, but Cirroc knows this about me, that I have been involved in politics all of my life in some way or another. I was a vice president of our union. I helped women walk into clinics, into abortion clinics 25 years ago when Operation Rescue was blockading clinics and killing doctors. So those kind of big issues about who people are and what they're allowed to be or not allowed to be by their society thrilled me. And I thought Deep Space Nine, I would follow it heavily because of how informed it was about that. And I remember Avery and I talking early on in the show, and him having a real sense of, I have an obligation here to make stories about what I think is right. And I appreciated that. So yeah, that's what I remember. That's what I remember.
Yeah. Cool. I know we don't have much time, and there's so much that you've covered in your life, your battles with your own cancer, and you're surviving. And, you mentioned being vice president of the Screen Actors Guild and so many things that you've done. But I want to thank you for, being there for me when Aaron Eisenberg passed away. I remember how your energy was comforting for me in those moments at the funeral, and the hugs that you gave me kind of breathed a little bit of life and hope for me back into my life. So I want to thank you for that as well.
Thank you. I remember thinking, I don't see Cirroc. I bet he's downstairs and coming to find you. And I'm so glad I did. It's a special moment I'll hold on to for the rest of my life. For both of us, I think.
Me as well.
I'm gonna get going.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for that. That was big, and I definitely needed that encouragement and uplifting that you gave me, and the love that you shared with me. So, Kitty, you're always amazing. You've always been consistently amazing. You are a wonderful human being.
Except if I have to, and then I'm a bitch.
Yeah, well, that's acting. That's really good acting, because there's none of that in you. And so we just appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us. I wish we could have had you many times on the show. They underutilized your gifts.
Thank you.
But I'm glad that they did get the chance to see you here in this episode towards the end of the show. Kind of, they're bringing out the best for last, and I'm glad that they included you as part of that.
Well, you're flattering, but thank you very much, Rock.
He means it. He doesn't flatter me. So Kitty, he means it.
I only say what it is.
That's how you know. Well, Kitty, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. We truly appreciate you, all the great stories, and everything you've meant to the Star Trek family for decades. It feels like you were just so much more a part of Deep Space Nine, just because you really were behind the scenes, so much more a part of Deep Space Nine. We saw you in 2 episodes, but it feels like Kitty is like an integral part of the family, right?
Well,
we've had other people come in here and talk about the readings that they did at your house with you there. And so, I mean, your imprint is all over this show. It's obviously with Armin and reading opposite with him and going on the journey of Quark with him. But your imprint is all over the show. Your conversations with me, your conversations with Avery, you're impacted with all of us on the cast and the relationships that you had prior. So, even though there's only a couple of episodes in which we can physically see you, your fingerprints are all over every episode.
Yeah, Jeff Combs told us that they'd be running lines and you'd walk in from the hall and say, "No, give me more." That doesn't. No, he didn't say that. But he was thinking it. No.
Not true. Yes, although we do spend a lot. Jeff just calls out of the blue and the conversation's going forever. Yeah. We're all family. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of our family as well, Kitty. We really appreciate you. Everybody stick around. We've got another segment to hit next, but not with Kitty. So make sure you go follow her on Twitter. She's going to keep you very informed. Lots of great stuff there on the Twitterverse, Kitty's Twitter, that is. So thank you very much, Kitty. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, everybody. Believe that. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Cirroc. Lofton.
Hello. Hello.
Man, oh man, we are having way too much fun. And we are talking about Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 22, Tacking into the Wind. That means, you guessed it, there are 3 Deep Space Nine episodes after this one. Sad and scary and exciting. Here are the trivioids of the day, coming fast and furious. An explosion began at the intercooler matrix of a Jem'Hadar ship. Garak sneaks up on Odo. Odo doesn't want Kira's pity. Julian Bashir has pulled 4 all-nighters in a row. Julian Bashir is not going to pull a rabbit out of his med kit, which I thought was cute. Martok was outnumbered 6-1 by the Dominion at Avenal 7. Those of us that live in California know that there's a city called Avenal in the Central Valley that smells like cow poop.
Okay.
Like Coalinga. Anyway, where was I? I got lost in poop joke talk.
Avenal.
Yeah. General Martok is in critical condition in the Rotaran sickbay. Worf is beginning to sound like a Romulan. Ooh, fighting words. The Dominion has succeeded in finding Damar's family. Ezri Dax is a member of the House of Martok. Keiko O'Brien whipped up some crab rolls for Julian Bashir. And Colonel Kira does her best Luaran impression. So much good stuff in this episode, yeah?
Yeah. Just a lot of good stuff in this episode. I thought this episode was laced with some really amazing,
something good.
Yeah, some scenes were just boiling up with good scenes and nice pairings. Just love the pairings. One of them was Galron and Sisko. I thought they had a really great scene where Galron was just giving him the big eyes.
The eyes were happening. He was beaming himself.
He was giving Sisko the full big eyes.
And the contrast too, because you've got Sisko not giving the big eyes back, just staying cool, calm, collective, but behind the eyes, you can see that it's simmering, that he's concerned, that he's upset, that he's ready to fight. But his eyes are just keeping cool, saying, "That's all right, cool. Galron, you just relax, man."
Galron had a great line. He said, "That's one of the things I like about you, Captain. Your loyalty to your friends." I thought that was a great line. And then Sisko came back at him. But it was a great line.
And Sisko said, yeah, it's not just loyalty. And I agree. That was maybe the best moment in the episode because for me, it was a good line, but it was delivered so well in that on the surface, it's almost Cardassian in nature or Romulan because Galron is saying something that on the surface is a compliment. That's what I like about you, compliment. Loyalty to friends, compliment, right? But the way he delivers it, and I don't know if the director, Michael Vehar, told him this or if he read it in the script, but somebody told him, or this is what was conveyed, I'm not complimenting you. I'm insulting you. I'm saying you are wrong and you're only doing this out of loyalty, you know?
And it's a weakness of your
Yes.
character.
Yes.
That's how he was trying to, he was portraying him. Like, that's a weakness of yours, a flaw of yours.
It was,
but he was
dripping with a jab. It was just, loved it.
The sarcasm. It was just amazing. It was very well delivered by Bob O'Reilly. I thought he just delivered the line fantastically. He actually played a very good villain in this episode. Well, villain in which, you know, he's right on the cusp of that gray area of just losing it as a dictator or whatever it is, chancellor. But he's on the edge of losing it. And I love the moment also with Sisko and Worf, when Sisko tells Worf, do whatever it takes, Mr. Worf. Like, I don't even care what you got to do, man.
Because I'll tell you, if Captain Picard says, do whatever it takes, it doesn't mean do whatever it takes. He's like, within reason. When Sisko says do whatever it takes, he's like, you heard me.
Yeah. And so as soon as he said that, I was like, Galron is dead. Instantly, I was like, that's like the mob putting a hit out on somebody. That's like when the Godfather says, I need you to take care of this problem for me. You already know what it means. It's over. So I was like, oh, Galron, you're dead.
Yeah.
But great moments. I thought Casey Biggs, I'm so impressed by his acting and his portrayal as Damar. When he comes up to Kira and he stands up to her and he says to her in the beginning, she says, I think you need to do something about this guy over here, you know, the guy. And his answer was, I'm supporting him.
Yeah.
And I was, I thought that was like, it was classic, you know, it was just like, it was a good comeback. It was well delivered. And then the acting, I was just blown away. I was blown away by the acting in this. I thought Garrick and Odo had the best scenes in this episode. When Odo is kind of snuck up on by Garrick.
It really was tough for me to watch. I was not prepared for that because I don't remember it. You know, 20 years ago, it certainly didn't affect me 20 years ago when I saw it. But today when I saw it, I was just like, woof, that is tough to watch. And you're right, like what you said in your earlier segment, that it felt like that's how Rene lived his life, you know, similarly to Odo. I never got a chance to meet him, but by all accounts, an amazing man.
Yeah, and he had that pride about his own death, where he didn't want it to be something that people took pity on him for, you know. And I thought that was just the irony and the writing there, and his own life and how we've seen it played out was just remarkably kind of identical in some kinds of way. So it was hard to watch that scene, but it was very well acted. I thought that Rene gave a great performance, acting through all of that makeup and almost through the shadows of him in that bed. Sometimes you can only see just one eye because of the shadowing. And even through that just one eye, he was really conveying a lot to Garrick, like don't be an asshole, Garrick, I'm dying. And Garrick was like, you know, you can see he's concerned. It was a genuine concern. And even the moment when he had that conversation with Kira, I thought that was another great scene when he's like, look, I have to tell you something. Odo is lying. He's really hurting worse than he's letting on. And when Kira says, I know.
A+ writing. Great twist for us. Perfect.
Great twist. Well delivered. And she says something to the extent of, you know, if that's the thing that allows him to keep his dignity, you know, if that's how he wants to have dignity. A shed of dignity. Yeah. A shred of dignity. And I was like, wow, that's deep on Kira's part to kind of allow him to fake fool her, you know? Yeah.
I feel like that is really a writing clinic. I feel like that teaches us all, especially anybody that's ever wanted to do any writing, like really how to write with depth, because the show doesn't need that twist. The episode doesn't need that twist. But that's the difference between good writing and great writing. They could have easily just said, oh, Garrick tells her, and she's like, what? And then she goes and confronts Odo, and it would still be good scene, good TV, everything works. But I feel like that little thing of her saying, look, of course I noticed the man I love. I'm watching his every move. Of course I know. That's a really good writing, twist for me. And it makes me curious if they had that little twist in mind and then they built the story around it, or if they were going through the story and one of them said, hey, what about if Kira already knows? And they all go, ooh, that's a good one. That's a great idea. And it's a chicken and egg thing. I don't know which one came first, but I just think that's what makes this show so well written, is those little details. It's really smart.
Yeah. The other detail I thought was really great was the moment when the founder is talking to Wei Yun, and the founder is saying, Damar is becoming a real problem, and we're going to have to station all the Cardassians on outposts so that he has to kill his own people. And Wei Yun says, what a wonderful idea. And the founder says, your opinion was not solicited.
Right. Yeah. She just loves tearing him down.
Oh God,
that's an abusive relationship.
Yeah, she's the Kai Wynn of the founders. Out of they sent Kai, they sent their Kai Wynn to be the ambassador for the founders. But the way she shut him down, and the other thing I think, great writing, was when she says something to the effect of, "Oh God, how I would long to replace this Wei Yun. Let me know when the replicator is back up and running."
And then Wei Yun's kind of got this look of like, oh, nuts.
Yes.
They're talking about me, aren't they? That's me. My days are numbered.
Yes. And that was a night. I mean, obviously they're suggesting something's going to happen in the next couple of episodes that we got left, but that was the suggestion. But it was a very kind of, a nice moment of exposition for me. And I thought, once again, Ron Moore just keeps giving us drama. He is a master of building up drama, right? The drama between Damar and Kira, when Garrick says, you're gonna have to kill him before he kills you. I was like, oh, this is a great scene. I was just eating this whole episode up. This was just like nothing but good food.
And everybody at home, Damar is Gul Rusat. And then because he's kind of like Damar's Damar. And then there was a third one last week played by Vaughn Armstrong. We didn't see him this week, but that's definitely Damar's Damar. Kind of a bummer we didn't get to see him again. Something with a K. I don't remember. Kester or Kestel Run, something like that. That's a Star Wars thing. But yeah, I agree about Ronald D. Moore. I'm always surprised at the delicate moments that he knows how to write, because I expect him, Battlestar Galactica, dude knows how to write science fiction. He knows how to write tense scenes and powerful scenes and science fiction type scenes. But I'm always surprised when he has these really tender moments and this really sweet dialogue. I'm like, is there anything this guy can't do? That's not fair that he could just do everything well, even comedy.
Yeah, he is a master of really just getting into the details of stories. So, he doesn't just give you the overall, oh, she likes him and he likes her. There's just so much layered stuff where it's so complicated, and it's like you have to unpack a whole lot of things. So he had, I guess you would say, he's the king of the backstory. But, Kira, I thought, was in that scene that's behind you with Gul Rusat.
Couple great lines there too. When she grabs him, he says, "Oh, I guess I hit a nerve," and that's a great done. Average writer says, "Got him, good, done." But then no, she says what did she say exactly? She's like, oh,
this is hitting a nerve.
Yeah, that's what it was. No, this is it. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. And even before, just slightly before that, when he comes up and he starts talking to her, she says something to the effect of, oh, this should be good. Like let's see what you have to say right now, because you're about to get yourself in a chokehold.
Yeah, she's probably thinking like, which way do I want to harm him? Which is the way that'll harm him, that'll give me the most satisfaction? I'm going to go with the reverse headlock so I can whisper in his ear and just threaten.
Yeah. It's like when your friend tries that karate move on you where they make you say uncle, or like they get your wrist in a way and it's like, they're like, you got to tap out. You're like, come on, dude. You know, it's like, let go, let go. She gets you into that move where you're like, you just have to tap out and let go and ask her to, you know, release you. But no, I thought Martok had a great line too in this episode, the moments between Worf and Martok. But I thought Martok's his reasons for why he doesn't deserve to be Chancellor are noble, in my opinion. He's like, I don't want the power and glory. I'm just an obedient, loyal to the Empire type of guy. I don't have any desire to be aggrandized in some kind of way. And those are the reasons why he is the best candidate. It's actually what we should be looking for in our own political sphere, which is somebody who doesn't want, to wield a powerful position or a title around for their own aggrandizement or for their own, benefit, more so for the service of others. And I think those are the best leaders that we have ever seen, are those people that are, selfless and dedicate their role or their occupation in the service of others.
And that's why I'd like to nominate my grocer at Ralph's for city councilman, because he was very friendly.
Yeah. No, but he gives a great line. He says, I'm just a man from the Catalonians, a man without a drop of noble blood in his veins. And
very Shakespearean.
It's very Shakespearean, yeah, but it's also a reflection of what some people may feel in life, as far as aspiring to certain levels and feeling like certain things are unattainable in their life because they are not worthy. They don't have the pedigree. They don't have the background. And that kind of mentality could be limiting. It could be a limiting thing. Clearly, it was in this position, in this particular incident, it was not the right approach. Worf took the more aggressive kind of, appropriate measures to end the insanity.
Very Klingon.
Yeah. But I do feel like it's something that a lot of people struggle with because they do feel like they're not deserving or less than, or, not included, or don't have the pedigree.
Was not born within amongst the elite, right?
Right. And I thought that was a noble perspective for him to feel like he was not deserving, but I also feel like those are the people that are the most deserving, which is kind of crazy.
In a lot of ways, that's also the story of Captain Sisko becoming the emissary, where he was the perfect emissary because he wasn't a Kai Wynn that wanted the power, that was born unto it. And well, I guess he kind of was, but we didn't know that at the time. But it's a very similar situation there. And something I was just thinking about, we got to run in just a second here. We'll talk way more about it in the free for all in a second, guys. But another thing I was thinking was 3 characters died today. We had the new Vorta that died, Luarin, right? We had
Dukat,
Damar's Damar, right?
Damar's Damar,
Gul Rusat, and who was the third one?
Galron,
the big one, yeah. So 3 characters died that kind of stuff is what tells you you're nearing the end of a series, when people start going.
Also, really quickly, I just want to mention really quickly the other scene that I thought was on par with any other good scene there is. And it was the moment when DeMar loses his family, or he finds out that his family had been killed. And Kira catching herself from making that smug comment that she couldn't resist in the moment. And I feel like I've been there before.
I was just going to say that. We've all been there.
Been there before. You're like, that joke it didn't come out the way
but it's like it comes out because he kind of deserves it. However, it's not necessarily the best thing to do it, but you're like, but it was so juicy. It was so good for the taking. Right? It was like he's had that coming for so long.
But then you realize it's too easy. That was too easy. And now and Kira did a very good job. Yeah, Kira did a good job of recognizing that this is not the right time. Guy just found out he loses his family. You don't rub salt in the wound. It's like he's already in enough pain as it is.
Right.
But Garrick gave a great comeback speech to that, which is he's more receptive now to those words just because having had that happen to him. So once again, great writing by Ron Moore, because such a complex scene taking place. It's only a 3-minute scene, but it's just so much complexities in that exchange of information. And I thought, man, Ron Moore is so good at just writing and explaining things, and
writing.
Just writing. The guy can write. But yeah, there was just too much. There was just too many good moments. Not to mention the O'Brien and Bashir things I thought was also good as well.
Well, speaking of too many good moments, we got too many great people to mention right now. And we'll talk more about this in a minute. And they are Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England, out in Wales, of course, Yvette Blackmon, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, Tim Baum, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Palat, Erica Strom out in the UK, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, Radek Orszewski out in Southwest Poland, Henry Unger, live from Tokyo, Matt Boardman, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Wow.
Gruner.
That is a cool crew. Everybody stick around. We've got the free-for-all coming up next, and we'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton.
Hello.
And a bunch of other people. This is the free-for-all, and those awesome people are Anil O. Palat is here. Edward Foltz is here with a Wei-Yun picture in his background. That is cool.
I'd be decorated, yeah.
Dr. Susan V. Gruner is hanging out with Bajor and Deep Space Nine. I was going to say Earth, but that's got to be Bajor. Eve England is out in Wales wearing a Defiant shirt. Faith Howell hanging out with Deep Space Nine, of course. Malissa Longo on the other side of Deep Space Nine. They each get a pylon. Goldu Scott Jensen is here. He just got a promotion at work, everybody. Let him know how you feel about that. Dr. Mohamed Noor is here at Duke University. Because if you see those posters in the background, it means he's at work in his office. Matt Boardman is here. He doesn't want us knowing what the hell's in his background right now. He's all blurred.
My meth lab.
Is, let me guess, live from Tokyo. Tierney C. Diekman is here, looking like a rock star, of course. Carrie Schwent is here with Gowron eyes. That's the one right there. We love it. And Homer Frizzell is here. He did stretches so he could do lots of head shakes and head eye rolls and off to a great start.
Eyebrow lifts. Can you imagine Galron trying to approach you at a bar and he's just staring at you with this?
I think it would work.
Yeah. I've been looking at you all night. Like, yeah, I can tell.
We know. Sure.
We know.
Oh my gosh.
Couple quick things. Number one is Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score. I know.
Oh man, didn't do that.
Sounds like a horse.
9. Solid Deep Space Nine on this episode right here.
Nice.
Anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know what?
I don't know, but it's a 10.
That must have been Sue.
Definitely a 10. It's a 10. I don't want to hear anything else. I'm turning off.
All right, guys, no more guesses.
We're all muted.
It's actually an 8.7.
Oh, that was going to be my guess.
It's pretty good, actually.
That's pretty close.
Very good
Solid
for
score,
IMDb.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a strongly worded letter to somebody.
Put on IMDb.
Here, IMDb.
So we had 4 NAMs by my count. Did y'all get them?
I know Keiko was in there.
Yes.
Keiko and Sloan.
Oh, I didn't catch the Sloan. Very good.
Me either.
Curzon and Jadzia.
Yep.
Right. Curzon and
Curzon.
Jadzia.
Yep.
Does Kalis count? Because he was
Nailed it.
Oh, okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
A million times.
Yeah.
I was especially happy with the Keiko one because we haven't freaking heard from her. It feels like since the 4th season. She's just been gone.
She's been busy making crab cakes.
On the other side of the hallway. Yep.
Yeah.
Hanging out with all the Vulcans. That's what they're doing.
She needs to come down to Sisko's Creole Kitchen, and we can do a Keiko's crab roll on the menu. You know,
crab Keiko's.
Keiko's
crab
corner.
Keiko's.
Very nice. All right. No stranger to crab cakes herself. Dr. Susan B. Gruner is here, and she's got some things to say as to why this is a 10.
It's a 10.
Oh.
I have too many things written down. This episode, in my humble opinion, represents why Deep Space Nine was one of the best shows ever on television. I'm trying to think of what show is up to the caliber of writing and acting of Deep Space Nine. The only thing I can think of maybe is MASH. And I know I'm a lot older than everybody here, but this episode was just brilliantly written. I wrote down a bunch of adjectives that I'll get into later, but there was so much. You want to talk about content. There was so much here. And it was just every little bit of it was perfection. The lighting, the music, the acting, the costumes,
The
everything.
adjectives.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. It's a 10. If this doesn't get a 10, I can't imagine what would get a 10.
Yeah, the acting was
And
fantastic.
Esri gets a 10. She gets a 10. I keep writing hashtag Esri all over all my notes.
You hashtag with your notes.
Yeah.
Search it easier. Yeah, you can search it.
Yeah, hashtag Esri.
So what were these adjectives? Don't leave us in suspense here.
Okay, so this is what the things that I felt watching this episode: hate, love, respect, murder. That's not an adjective exactly, but a verb. Vengeance, justice, and compassion. All sometimes in one 30-second time increment. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
And my best line, or what I thought was the best line, was when the founder asked Wayoon how long before the cloning facility. Poor Wayoon.
That was glorious.
I forgot what Wayoon we're on. Is it 6 that we're on now?
Oh, it's 8 or 9?
9?
Is it 8?
Oh,
No,
I put a question mark next to it.
All right. Good stuff. Definitely a 10. We're actually on our first Ed Foltz, though. However, Ed, how are you today? And what do you think about this episode in particular?
I'm doing great, thanks, and really enjoyed it. A lot of adjectives. I can't list them necessarily, but one of the things that stood out for me, just kind of watching it, rewatching, I hadn't seen it in quite a while, is just what a great job DS9 does with their different races, the archetypes that Star Trek has, before Deep Space Nine and then continuing on, has built. Just looking at the Cardassians, how they're all about order, they're all about structure, rank, and even Wayoon, I think, at one point says that they won't rebel because they are all about authority, and just how well that they showed that. And then one thing I remember back, I used to have the DS9 companion. I read it so many times it fell into pieces and turned to dust, so I don't have it anymore. But when I had it, I remember, I think it was Ron Moore talking about how they structured the Cardassians around like Russian literature, Dostoevsky novels or something, where they would just go on these long monologues like Dukat does so perfectly. And I just think how it just kind of struck me how they refine them so well over the years. They're not just someone with a different head prosthetic, their personalities. They've got the same thing with the Klingon story, with Galron, with Martok, how they're, obviously all about honor, battle, song, and all that. And just, I started thinking about how Martok is, in my mind, probably the best representation of Klingon. Michael Dorn did a great job with Worf, obviously, but he was kind of atypical, raised by humans and all that. But just really, really impressed with what they've done. With the small details, like having the races be consistent with who they're supposed to be. But yeah, fantastic episode. I loved it. Ron Moore wrote it, and whatever he writes, I always love. So.
All right, I can't be the only one that thinks Ed looks like Sean Kinney, who played Captain Pike. Check this out, right? There's no way there's not a similarity there.
No, I don't know. But my question for Ed was, what did Jeffrey Combs write on the photograph behind you? It looks like there's some caption there.
Yeah. He wrote, "The founders are wise in all things." My son actually got it for one of my other sons, and when I saw it, I snagged it from him and said, "Dad privilege." But so my
privilege
for his birthday never got it. Yeah, Jeffrey Combs was at a convention at our house. At our house, he wasn't at our house. A couple miles from our house a few months ago, and it was a horror convention, and my son grabbed it. So yeah, so it's like my only DS9 paraphernalia. So I put it on the wall.
What does it say? The founders are wise.
Yeah, founders are wise in all things, and I think it says "Happy Birthday, Sam," which obviously is my son, not me, but I might black that out and just put my name. I don't know.
He must have been there because of the Reanimator. I mean, that was the show that put him on, the movie that put him on the map.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, let us know when you switch names on that. That'll be cool. Okay, Anil is here. How you doing, Anil? Where are you today, by the way?
I am on the East Coast of the U.S.
Nice.
Right.
How do you feel? Did you love this episode?
Yeah, this is a great episode. I really liked Ezri's discussion with Worf. I thought that was such a good point about sort of it can be made about anybody, right? Like if you want something to change, you have to somebody's got to do it, right? Like everyone's waiting for somebody else to do it. And Worf, especially in TNG, always gets he's a Klingon that doesn't really know what Klingons are really like because he was raised by humans, and he just knows Klingons culture from books or reading or holodecks or whatever. But now it's coming back to be something valuable because he's holding on to all these things that makes Klingons, sort of like the core of the culture, the ideals of the culture. And so he's coming in as an outsider, which has always been kind of something people have held against him. And now it's turning out that he has this perspective with the help of Ezri kind of, pointing him in the right direction. I think now it's like an asset. And he's coming in and saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe this idealism I have, I can, use it somehow. So really a good turn for Worf because, Deep Space Nine just keeps making him such a better and better character. Whereas in Next Gen, he doesn't always get to shine as a Klingon.
It's true. Raised by humans.
Humans.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Do love those Klingons. We lost Gowron, you guys. It's a sad day. But you know who's not sad about that is Dr. Mohamed Noor. He is a known Gowron hater. But other than that, did you love this episode?
I did love this episode quite a bit. I thought it was excellent. The thing that struck me the most, and I agree with the point Sue brought up earlier too, the thing that struck me the most was the dialogue in this episode. Oh my gosh. There's so many good sets of lines, both in terms of just being really moving, but also in terms of just funny things. Like I like the exchange between Ezri and Worf with the whole sweet, not a very Klingon word, is it? No. It's so very cute. Honorable. Better. Be a little obvious. That was great. It was a little obvious. That was great. Yeah. But like the exchange between Ezri and Worf about the denial within the Klingon Empire of itself, amazing. I mean, it's so true. We can think of that in so many other examples, which we won't go into here, but we can think of a lot of other examples of that around the world.
Relevant today
for sure, as are many things in the show. The discussion between Damar and Kira about like they're dead, they weren't part of this rebellion, blah blah blah, and they're like, yeah, Damar, what kind of people would give those orders? Like, ooh, that was like a knife in the heart. And actually, I like Garrick's response to that. When Garrick's response is like, if he's the leader we need him to be, then he needs to hear these kinds of things. Damar's comment too, when he killed Rusat too, like he was my friend, but his Cardassia is dead and it won't be coming back. I didn't love the death part to it, but like, it seemed like he could have stunned him or something. I don't know. It seemed like something else could have happened. But still, like, it's just the dialogue was amazing. It just blew me away. But that was the thing I took away the most from it. I did think it was very funny, the point that I think Sue brought up earlier about the female changing, saying, if our cloning facilities were operational, I would eliminate this Wayun immediately. I love Jeffrey Combs' look then. He almost had Gowron eyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it. This is the case. I agree with Sue for, I started saying for a change my outfit, but I agree with Sue that this one, like, this deserves a 10. I mean, I would happily give it a 10.
Yeah, I have to agree. There weren't really any bad scenes or lulls in the episode. It didn't feel slow. It didn't feel like, oh, I hate this plot line. Every plot line was just like delicious.
Yeah, and that's our boy Ronald D. Moore with that amazing dialogue that we were singing his praises earlier. Love that guy. And he doesn't even know I exist. Eve England knows we exist, though, and she's out in Wales today. How do you feel about this episode?
Yeah, I mean, it just had so much in it. I feel like I need to watch it a couple more times just to really absorb everything. I mean, as everyone has already said, those scenes that were sort of commentating on the Klingon Empire and then the Cardassian way of how they'd managed the last 50 years. It all seemed to be about how people having to come to terms with what the reality of their situation was, and that their circumstances kind of blinded them up until that point about what they were really doing. And as Mohamed said, that point scene with Damar and Kira, you got the sense that he really hadn't seen it up until that point, that's he was doing exactly the same thing as what the founders were doing as part of the occupation, and then in the same way with Ezri and Worf, they almost needed that outside perspective to kind of open their eyes to the fact that because they got caught up in the power, I suppose, is what happens, and that is very relevant to how I suppose politics and everything kind of works in the real world with us. You have to sort of think that not all of these people who end up doing bad things are, just evil and doing it deliberately. They just get caught up in that sort of circumstance and the power and the process. So I thought that was just really, that's what sort of struck me from the episode is how this, you just had these commentaries on those, big powers that we've been used to seeing. But on terms of the lighter side, one of my other favorite scenes, I just loved how you just had the relationship between Bashir and O'Brien in those couple of scenes, and you could really get the sense that they were best friends. They had that row, and Bashir had snapped at O'Brien because he was obviously tired, but O'Brien knows him well enough that they can just come in the next day with some snacks and everything's fine, and they're trying to plot the next scheme that they want to get involved with, next adventure. So I just thought that was a really nice way of sort of cementing, as we're coming to the end, like the relationship that we've been following right the way through the 7 seasons. So I just thought that was that was just a nice bit of softness compared to, in my view, it was such a solemn and heavy episode generally. That was just quite nice to sort of see some of that sort of best friend moments, and I really like that.
Yeah, we barely got to talk about that earlier, but one thing I did want to bring up was I thought that was a nice moment, but a really nice touch to that was when Bashir seemed to be really enjoying that crab roll. Like it really seemed like he was touched by it and enjoying it, like he was really going for it. Sid did a great job there. I really like that little extra little bit there.
Was it really a crab roll? Do we know?
You didn't say sadly.
All right.
Oh man.
Oh boy, everybody's so mad all of a sudden. What happened? The impossible. Malissa Longo is here. She's focused on a poll, but she just answered it. Our question was, who is more ruthless, Kai Wynn or the female changeling? Because we kind of talked about them a little bit earlier.
How do you choose? I don't know how to choose between those two.
You click. There's a button. No, what do you think about this episode?
I loved this episode so much. When I finished watching it, and I watched it twice, I was like, I love Deep Space Nine so much for episodes like this. One, you guys, one is Kira. Hello. Kira is amazing in all things, and I really love her chemistry working with the Cardassians. She's really got, I don't know what it is about Kira and working with Cardassians, but she does it very well. There's this definite power struggle, but I don't know. I love it. I love those scenes. I love the scenes with her and Rasat and her striking a nerve, really hitting a nerve, and taking him out. But I also love her moments with Odo, and it shows such a different side of her. It's such a there's such a tenderness between her and Odo that I love. And gosh, at the end, I'm just like, oh no, poor Odo. But a couple of things that I learned is that the title of this episode is a nautical reference describing when a ship follows a course against the gale and then keeps going by making course corrections. And I thought that was kind of very this whole episode what demonstrated that very well with the Klingons and the Cardassian Empire. both Ezri said that the Klingon Empire should die in the way that it needs to continue, and then Damar said the Cardassian Empire is dead. That old Cardassia is dead. So they're both making course corrections for the betterment of their species and their cultures, which I thought was amazing. I loved Ezri in this, and I felt like this was the first time we saw Ezri as Ezri and settling into the role of Ezri with Dax. She's got the wisdom of the Dax symbiont with her, but she's also got her own experiences that has influenced Ezri up to this point. So I didn't see Curzon or Jadzia when she was advising Worf. I saw Ezri, and it was wonderful. And I loved the advice that she gave him. And it was, this whole episode was so wonderful and so wonderfully done with Bashir's relationship with Julian. And the whole thing was really excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Ryan.
Sorry, I was still looking at this poll. Everybody's in suspense that was just listening in. 6 people said the female changeling is the most ruthless, and 7 said, nah, it's Kai Wynn. But let us know your thoughts, everybody, in the comments below. Or don't, totally up to you. Scott Jensen, what's up, man? Happy promotion day, and what do you think about this episode?
I love this episode. I was just nodding along with Melissa so much because this is probably the ultimate Kira that is demonstrated in this episode. I had made a post about her a while ago, how Kira has become my favorite Star Trek character, not just because of everything she survived and her toughness and just everything she's been through, but the fact that she heals and becomes a better person by the end of it, and actually actively attempts to heal. She doesn't just go, this is the way I am. And I mean, Kira in season 6 couldn't be helping Garrick. Couldn't be. I was thinking to myself, too, through this whole thing, I'm like, all these scenes that she's got that Nana has with Casey and Andy, and I'm going, these 3 are so great together. And we've seen maybe, 15 minutes of them all together, this entire series so far. Because Kira and Garrick don't have a lot of screen time together. And they were murder. Every scene that they were in, they were killing it. Particularly, there was one scene that really stuck out to me, and that was when Garrick had just finished talking to Odo, and he's talking to Kira, and just watching Nana's face that entire time, how she was welling up and then just pulled it all back in and went right back to work. And she was, and it was, her voice didn't shake. She didn't do any kind of body movements or anything. It was all just right up here, and it absolutely blew me away. Once again, there were a couple other things I thought that were really cool. Again, have stuff to do with Kira. Is that first scene in the very beginning when they're talking about the cells and how you can't know above and below. The cells can't have connection. And it reminded me of one of my favorite classic sci-fi books, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein. I don't know if anybody else has read that, but it's about a revolution on the moon. There's a bunch of people are the descendants of prisoners because they had made the moon into a prison and a mining colony. And this is years and years later, and they are forming a revolution and a resistance against the overlords and the computers that have taken over human civilization and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of the same talk that's very similar, which I think is really cool, that writers knew their stuff when they're talking about resistant cells and just the anonymity of it, that you can never turn on people if you don't know who they are, up and down. So nobody can get tortured for information. Yeah, I love the whole thing. And also Captain Sisko raising his voice to the head of the Klingon Empire. This dude is the leader of a warrior civilization, and he raises his voice to Gowron and then stares him down until Gowron leaves. Not a bit of sweat on that man's head the entire time, just straight stared him down and walked out. And I absolutely love that. I can't even go into the Klingon stuff right here the rest of the night because good Martok once again. It's too much. So I'm going to stop it at that.
Well, you had it coming.
Cicalas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Somebody is psychic here. Matt Boardman unmuted himself right when I was going to call on him, because you are next, Matt. It's like he unmuted, but then he's like, well, wait, let's see what happens. But no, you were right.
No, I have to mute myself because I have my Alexa set every top of every hour to remind me to get up and move. And so I didn't want everybody else to have to share in that. So that's why. But yeah, no, this is a great episode. And, there's a lot of, everybody else has made a lot of the same points that I was thinking as I watched the episode. But so I'm like, okay, what can I say that's different that hasn't already been said? But, I think about this episode, it's kind of like the coming to a lot of realizations for some of these characters, like Worf, I think about Worf and his journey from Next Generation to now where we're at in Deep Space Nine. And he was raised by humans, and he has always known a Klingon empire that has been very political, more warrior race, but more political. He had the whole thing with having to accept his commendation because of Duras and all that, because I just thought, well, whatever, he's off playing in the sandbox with the Federation. He's not going to care. But no, it's like his whole life he's fought for that. Like, no, I am Klingon, despite the fact that I was raised human. No, I'm Klingon. And so, yeah, maybe his vision of the Klingon Empire is romanticized because, it's like for myself, before I came out to Hollywood and started working out here, I just thought, it was amazing, and everybody had, it was just, it was something different than what it is. And that's not to say that I haven't had a whole lot of fun, but it's like, now that I'm a part of it, I see, oh, wait, it's not that romanticized thing that I thought it was when I was living in East Lansing, And so I think that for Worf, that's kind of what he's come to this realization, with the talk with Ezri, and then his friendship with Gowron, during the time, the Duras time, and now that it's gone, and now he's become friends with Martok. It's like, as they sit there, he has to come to that realization of like, oh yeah, this is not right. It's not this thing that I thought it was. It's this very political body that's very contrary to the Klingon Empire that I believe it to be. And so, and I just thought that whole fight with Gowron was just fantastic. Like that shot of Worf crashing through the glass, that reverse angle there as he crashes through the glass, and then, Gowron, and he comes up with the broken pieces of Batleth into Gowron. That was so good. Let's see, what else do I love about this episode? One of the relationships that I don't think really got explored a whole lot, but I loved, was the relationship between Odo and Garrick, which we got introduced to in season 3 with the two-parter. It was an Improbable Cause and the Dias Cast. And because there was a great episode after that, they go through that whole incident together, and I think that kind of establishes a little bit of rapport between the two. And there's that great episode afterwards where they're sitting at the replomat, and Odo's got that cup that he keeps refilling with himself, So I think it's great. But I love that little interchange between the two of them, because it kind of reminds you, it's like, oh yeah, there's, obviously there's some behind the scenes interactions between the two of them. And for Garrick to genuinely, you can tell Garrick genuinely has feelings for Odo when he says, Odo, you have my, and Odo's like, look, if I don't want to hear it from the woman that I love, I don't want to hear it from you, right? So that was great. I love that Martok comes from these humble beginnings, and he just, I think he sells himself short in a lot of ways. Like he's like, I'm just there to do my job, right? I'm a soldier of the Empire. But what he doesn't realize is that, yeah, you're just a soldier of the Empire, but you're really good at what you do. And I think one of the great things about Worf is that he sees that, he sees that that Martok has this greatness. And so it was never a question for Worf that Martok is the one that should take over after that. And then the last thing, I love the music of Star Trek. This one was scored by David Bell. And I don't know. There's something about David Bell's music, like I always associate the Dominion War arc with his. He's always has the heavy horns and the French horns and those harmonies and stuff like that. And I don't know. It's one of those that I catch myself at, just tooling around the house or whatever, and I'm humming those tunes or I'll, So yeah, great music, great dialogue. Ron Moore always brings his A game, especially when the Klingons are involved. There's an episode of Voyager, Barge of the Dead. I remember watching that episode and I was like, man, this episode feels so familiar. It was like a warm blanket in a way, despite the fact that we're dealing with dead Klingon rituals and whatever. And then I saw who wrote it. I was like, nope, there's Ron Moore. So yeah, always brings his A game when he does episodes regarding Klingons.
Mm-hmm. We do love us some Ronald D. This guy is amazing. All right. Mai is live from Tokyo. Mai, your thoughts today. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, same as everybody. It's a total mind sync with what everybody's saying. Loved Ed's comments right at the top. That was amazing. And Melissa, you stole my comments. I think you're reading what I wanted to say. The Tacking into the Wind. What a great title. The writers just absolutely killed it this time. That title seems to be just very much about Damar because he's trying to figure out how to get what he's doing to go forward. And the little blurb they had in the Memory Alpha was talking about going into turning into the Gale. They didn't talk about how. I've got a friend who actually just bought a catamaran and sailed up from Cape Town to Grenada, where he's just gotten about a week ago. And along the way, I listened to a lot of the talk that he was saying. He talked about this because these big, tall-sailed catamarans and other similar boats have got these sails which turn to the side, and they move forward much better when the wind is coming from the side. So there's this zigzag sort of thing that they do to go forward. And that tacking into the wind where they have to take the bow of the boat and they have to go across the wind to get to go in the other direction. It really speaks to what Damar was doing with this. And I forget who mentioned it with his Cardassia's dead comment. That was just bang on. He really is moving forward with what he needs to get done. I loved everything about what the writers did with the title. I thought it was fantastic. The comments about Garak being the sentimental supporter, first with Odo and then with Kira, fantastic stuff. I mean, but question though, and I think maybe who's the other Lord of the Rings aficionado? Faith, is that you?
Faith and myself. I think that might be it. Anybody else?
Did Peter Jackson model Shagrat? Did Peter Jackson model Shagrat after Odo lying on the floor going? It just looked so much like bad hair day. Wow.
Yeah. Hair was a mess.
So, yeah. That was and the manipulation a la Dax, as Anil pointed out at the top. Esri was fantastic. Old soul, young person, just great. She brought in some great stuff there. What else? Worf with his Shakespeare, that was hilarious. I'd forgotten about that. I was cracking up. Listen, and then Kira with her acting. My God, Nana Visitor just absolutely nailed it every step of the way. That when she did the Luaran, when she put the headset on and did that, and she went from the very angry, very focused Kira out on a campaign, pissed off about helping the Cardassians in the first place, but really focused, to this sweet, kind Luaran. And then she comes back. There we go. That's comes back harsh. To it goes sweet, and then goes back to being the very focused Kira at the end. I thought, wow, what great acting. And I know we had Kitty on earlier, so as an homage to that, lipstick color, same as Luaran for that. I wanted to go with that today. Right? And I can't end this without a bit of an homage to the dear departed Gowron. So Matt, another song for you.
What? Did you say another song?
Song?
Oh, there it is. I see.
Over my shoulder.
Hang on. I'm going to spotlight you.
One more time.
But we're not hearing it.
No.
I don't know if the sound is coming through, but it's the soundtrack. I put Bob O'Reilly on there because it's Farewell to Bob O'Reilly.
Oh, we do love Bob.
Yes.
What was his last words, his dying words, when Galron, he said, "You
will
shall
not have this day." I think
this day.
It's like he was wrong.
Just a great episode. This episode, I give it a solid 11. Absolutely, turn it all the way up. Fantastic.
Very nice. All right. Tierney C. Diekman is an 11 herself, and she's got something to say. Let's hear it.
I always have far too much to say. We know this. Oh, God. I have to... my notes echo so much of what everyone is saying. Melissa, just nailed, half of what I have written down about Kira in particular. Just, wow. And, I mean... I've said it in the past few episodes for the ending arc, and I haven't been able to be around for a few of the others in this, but I probably would have said it for them too. I'm iffy on these last few, probably just from watching it too much. It just doesn't hit me. It doesn't. And there's a number of reasons for that until this one. I started this one up and finally felt engaged again, and I'm very happy for that, and really wanted to sit there and feel it. And you really do, with everything that's going on between the dialogue, the performances, and you can see where the writers, it felt like they cared more. There's more in it. And I don't know if you look at some of the information, they kind of had to change things around to fit the previous and the continuing episode to make everything work. And maybe that was good. The limitations they had to put on themselves brought more creativity into it, is the thing that happens. Sometimes works out better when you only have so much to work with. Brings in more ingenuity, and it shows. And actually in one bit, and I'd have to go back and really look, and maybe look in the future too, noticed it very much with the cinematography when they're on the ship, the Dominion ship, and they're waiting for the Breen weapon to be installed, and she's gone into Lauren mode, and that whole scene is going on. The camera is a little bit shaky cam. It's like you're in the ship with them. You can feel it. You can feel the tension build as everything's going on. And as soon as that's over and the scene switches, camera's smooth again. And you relax.
Interesting.
I wouldn't have noticed it before if I wasn't paying that much attention, but you do. And, I wonder if this is something that's been utilized before to build tension, but I really noticed it this time because I was really, really looking at this one. But then just what I absolutely loved, I will say, starting here and towards the end, is that full extent of the characterization and then the relationship of Kira, Odo, Garrick, and Damar. I don't know what it is. Maybe just because every single one of them has been through so much of their own personal hells that they've had to grow and learn and change, that they work so well together. And this episode in particular, for Kira's character, we're really finally seeing the full extent of everything that she is. And we couldn't get that without Nana. She friggin' nails this.
Yeah.
And we see, her training as a terrorist, as a military officer, with her love and sensitivities, with her relationship with Odo, and her respect for him as well, with his illness and what he's going through and how he feels with it. and the dissonance that she's facing between her past and her loyalties towards what's happening now, towards herself, her personal loyalties, and just what needs to be done. And Nana gives it this realism of how much a person can balance all of that, and how much they can contain, what emotions they can keep, and what just comes out, because there's gonna be leaks that spring here and there that any real life person just sometimes can't control. Like when she goes off on Rusat and beats the crap out of him, like she did to Damar at one point, before he learned, before he grew and understood that his Cardassia was dead. And then when she let that out on him of, yeah, Damar, what kind of people do that? And with that, we're also seeing more of Garrick. I think we got a little bit more of his character's extent through the claustrophobia, the tortures that he himself went through, and that his loyalties lie with himself. They're not really with Cardassia. They're with what sort of works with Garrick. And then as Cardassia changes, he kind of does too. And he sees that, you see that with him in, again, that moment with Rusat and Damar, and he's pointing, the weapon at Kira and Odo, and Garrick's just like, don't think you know me just because I'm Cardassian. Do you think my loyalties lie with you just because we're the same race? Really? And there's all of those complexities there. But moving on from that, there were a couple of deleted scenes, or I don't know if they were deleted or just they didn't film them. But one really great one apparently was that there was that lovely little speech with Ezri and Worf. But at one point, apparently, Ezri says to Worf something along the lines of, how did it feel to be Chancellor for a moment? How did it feel? Michael Dorn had commented on it. She says, how does it feel to be up on the mountaintop? What were you thinking? And he had said that he wished that his father had been there. He thought of his father, and he wished he could see him as Chancellor, if only for a moment. And Ezri says, I think he was there, as was Jadzia, and they would have been proud. And raises a toast says to Chancellor Worf, and they drink together. And Michael Dorn points out that it was just this riveting moment, and it's so sad that they had to apparently cut it for time. But just seeing little things like that at the end, where all of these characters come together, and we do get a lot more of Ezri as Ezri, not Ezri trying to make up for what Jadzia used to be, and her having this full understanding of the Klingon Empire, and Worf respecting her counsel on the fact that this is an empire that's essentially in a suicide dive. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not. And everybody's been seeing this in Klingon politics for years, but they're also swayed by the romanticism. We're seeing this now, unfortunately. We don't need to comment any further on that. But it just, goddamn, this episode. This has revitalized me again for, I hate to say it, for the end, but
there were two versions of that deleted scene. The other answer that Worf gave was that he wished Alexander was there so he can see how much more of a loser he is compared to his father.
I thought you were being serious for a second. Damn it, Cirroc.
Come on, you gotta know better.
We all know Worf doesn't think about Alexander.
Poor kid.
Love it.
Poor kid.
I wish we could have seen that deleted scene though. Either version. That would have been good stuff.
Worf just shitting on Alexander.
Yeah, he's got it coming.
One last time. It's season 7.
Kid
Get it out.
never had a chance.
And his
The poor
mud
kid
baths.
he did not have a chance.
Never had a chance.
For all of his
set up for
wonderful
failure
qualities,
from the beginning.
He was a crap father.
Well, somebody that also loves mud baths almost as much as Alexander is Carrie Schwent here. How you doing, Carrie? With Gowron eyes behind you.
Can't ever say I've taken a mud bath, but
we have to get Ryan a segue, a 7th rule segue for all the segues that he does.
Segues for
right?
Zipping around a cruise ship.
Random segues.
I can't be held responsible for all the dumb crap I say, please. Seriously. Anyway, please continue.
That's why we love you, Ryan. Yeah, I've got the Rip Gowron, and this is my favorite picture of Odo and Kira. And today I actually came up with their couple name. They are Odira.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's ever come up with that before, but I love it.
Odira.
Oh dear.
I like mashing up people's names. It's fun. Hey, knock it off, guys. Cats are. It's that time of day they start hissing at each other. They're ready to eat, but they can wait. But I will start off with my haiku, and then I've got all kinds of feels to go through. But to start off with, we've got Odo is getting worse. Martok is the new chancellor. Miles hatches a plan. And yeah, that little bit of sneaking in of just the two of them just simply sets things up for next time. And I love all the feels of every kind in the episode. Everybody's got depth of feeling of one kind or another for somebody. Seeing Garrick react, to seeing Odo laying in the bed like that. Just, only time I've ever seen that expression on him, and it just that gets you in the feels. And then he's like, "Yeah, I don't want Kira to know he loves her that much. He doesn't want her to know how much she's suffering." But then when Garrick goes to her, he sees the depth of love that she has for Odo. I already know, but it's going to help him to pretend that I don't know. And just I love just how just every scene with them together just gets here just all kinds of in the feels, and with the feels with Damar. I think it was Matt. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I wrote it down afterwards, that sometimes the things we need to hear the most are often the hardest to hear. We need to hear them, but sometimes hearing that is not pleasant. But there's nothing for it, but the only way out is through.
Like your alarm clock.
I don't know. No, I think I've heard somebody say, "Tell me what I need to know, not what I want to hear," or something like that.
Yeah,
I've heard it said like that before.
Yeah, just all kinds of stuff there. But then there's all of the little bits of humor put in through that were great. That little bit with Ezri and Worf, like, yeah, you're being cheesy, but yeah, you're right. But yeah, that he could have come up with something better. But I'll finish with my absolute favorite scene with Sisko just letting Gowron have it, and Gowron being all like petulant kid that yo, okay, you did this. What do you have to say about it? Well, and then Gowron's like, well, he's gonna be okay. Just that his facial expression and the way he said that just is absolutely my favorite part of the entire episode. Probably my favorite line of Gowron's period.
I just love that this whole time you've had Gowron just staring a hole in us right over your shoulder. Only Gowron can do.
His eyes are fantastic. My husband can actually do Gowron eyes like that. Yeah, I'll have to get him on to show you sometime, but his employee picture at work, his eyes are like this big. It's like that. And every time I point it out, he leans in at me like that and does just what you did, Cirroc, just to make me roll my eyes and laugh. Yeah.
Well, when I mentioned the mud bath earlier, Faith was actually nodding as if I was going to say her. So maybe Faith, you're the mud bath person.
I have not. However, we did have a mud festival in Korea when I was there that I always kind of wanted to go to. Except, as you may have noticed, I'm very fair skinned, and the idea of being in any kind of sun at any point is kind of scary. So yeah, I never partook, but I always thought I might like to try. So apparently it's supposed to be really good for your skin. So
well, you know what else is good for your skin? This awesome episode. How'd you feel about it? Did you love it? Did it make you laugh or cry?
I love this whole arc. So, I love how the writers are really pulling us together at this point, and everything's getting more and more tense as the war builds up to that end point that we, I guess, all know is coming, right? That's not a spoiler at this point. Especially, of course, the Damar arc, and I love how they added Rusat, and he's such a butt. He's so fun to hate. And I love how, that picture right behind you, that Kira just grabs him and gives him what Damar probably deserved long ago.
It's romantic.
And
he's like,
yeah, and I also love how the writers are so adept at sprinkling in background for characters with just a line or two. Like, we added a whole family for Damar. Unfortunately, kind of sad the way they got added, as they also exited the story. But I love that adds a whole depth to his character, and you can think back on things he's been doing, and wow, that's a whole different light in a lot of things. And that girl that he was hanging out with, was that his wife? Was it not his wife? We don't know. I'm gonna believe one way for my love for him, but I'll leave that there. I also, as I mentioned before, remember watching this when it first aired, and I remember being really surprised when they killed Gowron, because it was very well known that peripheral characters like that were named like the Duras sisters, if they got cast in a movie, they were going to get it. So it's unusual for a character like that has been in for so long, and especially on 2 series, I feel like, to be killed on screen. And so I remember being very surprised, but I also really love how they had Worf do it, so that it wasn't Galra, or wasn't Martok that killed him.
Right.
And so that kind of protects the integrity of the character. But then he didn't keep the power either. He passed it on. And so I thought that was really poetic in that dynamic there. And it kind of spoke to the respect that Worf has for Martok as well. And then one tiny little nitpick from that scene, child's uniform? Excuse me? This whole show is about that uniform? So we've been talking about Star Trek insults a lot lately in different corners. So I just, of all the insults that are out there, that one kind of hits me funny.
That's the one. All right. Well, that's about it for us. Cirroc, do you have any final thoughts on this? I feel like we only covered like half this episode. There was so much in here, right?
Yeah, this episode has so much stuff that's really hard to cover it all. It makes you feel a roller coaster of emotions when you watch it, because there's so many good scenes and good pairings of people that are just, immensely great actors.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I would say, the easiest thing that I can find as a cure for what Odo is going through is lotion. And I don't know why Bashir hasn't figured that out yet. Because that skin's so dry. Every time I see that little peeling piece, I'm like, just peel that little piece off, bro. I mean,
He's so satisfying.
You can't let that flake just sit there. You got to flake that off.
Little shea butter.
You add it
Little
back
shea
later.
butter. Yeah, cocoa butter.
Odo how to
Some
exfoliate.
Vaseline. Yeah, something. He needs a facial. No, I don't know if any of you thought about Mr. T, but I did when don't pity the fool. Don't pity the fool. I was waiting for Mr. T to pop up out of that little scene. I thought that Kira showed a lot of restraint and growth in the moment where she offended Damar when he lost his family. Normally, she would get her kicks off on just zinging one off on a Cardassian and just, making sure she's pretty good at throwing her jabs at the Cardassians, especially when it came to Dukat and even Damar in the past. She's really given him, but this time she took no pleasure in it. And I thought that was a lot of, that was growth in her, and that just shows that even your worst enemies, there's times in which it's not appropriate to say or do certain things. There's like a certain etiquette there that, you don't kick somebody when they're down there, or you allow their loved ones to bury them in peace, and you don't, defile the ceremony of their, of their demise. But I just think that that showed a lot of growth on Kira's part. The fact that she actually felt like she shouldn't have said that has come a long way for her, because she's normally doesn't care. The other thing I was going to say is do whatever it takes, Mr. War, Sisko says. And I really believed him when he said it. I thought that was a great delivery on Sisko's part. He kind of like let it be known. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, Galron, you're dead. You're a dead man. It's not going to work out for you, because Sisko's pretty much given the orders. But that do whatever it takes kind of reminds me of everybody's outlook in this particular episode. You've got the resistance cell doing whatever it takes to try to, stop the Dominion. You've got Odo doing whatever it takes to hide and conceal his illness and the severity of his illness from Kira. You've got Damar doing whatever it takes, including killing his own friend, because it was standing in the way of a free Cardassia.
Yep.
And so you've got all of these characters really doing whatever it takes. Even Garrick, he's unscrupulous, so you never know what he's going to do. But even he took the moment of confidence and kind of private moment that he had with Odo and said, I have to tell Kira, right? So he did what it took, even though he could have kept it private. He still felt like it was necessary to tell her. So he was doing whatever he thought it took to, make everybody aware of what was going on and what kind of odds they were facing. So I just think that everybody was really forced in a position where there was kind of a, you have to make a choice type of moment about going forward and having a new understanding about where we are going forward. And Damar has taken leaps and bounds as far as his growth. Worf showed me a lot of growth in this episode. He's usually a follow orders kind of guy, but he kind of stepped outside of his normal to, shake up the system. So there's a lot of stuff in this episode. I thought this was just jam-packed with too many good things. I loved all the moments with O'Brien and Bashir. I think their friendship is genuine.
Yep.
I think, Ezri and Worf had great moments. Wei-Yun's performances with the Founder, when there's a three-way conversation between Wei-Yun, the Founder, and then the Breen are standing there. I love Wei-Yun's reactions to the Breen when he looks at him like, how dare you say that, or something. When we know there was no really words transpired, but Wei-Yun's reactions register as if there were. So it's just fantastic acting all across the board. And also Mac Behar, who directed this, I think he did a really good job of focusing in on the eyes and really getting a lot of the emotion and feelings inside the eyes. I just kept feeling the capture of eyes, Sisko's eyes, Gowron's eyes, Garrick's eyes, Odo's eyes. Kira had a moment where, I mean, just her eyes were lighting up the screen and were telling so much emotion that she was holding back. And it was just so much written in the eyes. And kudos to Ron Moore for giving us so much material that these actors can even convey stuff that's not even on the script, just through looks. And this was a fantastic episode.
Love it. Cirroc dropping the lotion knowledge. That is a first for us on the 7th rule. That big old chunk on Odo's face. That was the biggest flake we've seen on Deep Space Nine since Marta flaked on Jake Sisko. Am I right? All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we have this week. Yeah.
By the way, I don't know what's going to happen after this. Obviously, you guys know more than I do. But there was a moment, and this is my own, like, I feel like they're telegraphing this. There was a moment when the founder said that, tell me when the replicators are back online, where I felt like Wei Yun sensed his own mortality and almost felt like he's going to act on the fact that he's up on the chopping block. So I don't know what's going to happen next. This is me just telling you what I felt like was being given away in the performance by Jeffrey Combs. So I don't know what's happening, but I do feel like Wei Yun is in a predicament where he may have the option to defect, let's say.
Well, they're raising the stakes for everybody, right? It's getting closer and closer. We saw 3 people die, Gowron and a couple other characters that were a little less big, but I mean, the whole show is raising the stakes. This is it. This is your
Little Indians.
Yeah, this is your signal that the show's about to end, when people start dying or their mortality starts getting closer. All right, cool. Thanks very much for playing with us today. You too, Ed, Sue, Mohamed, Eve, Melissa, Scott. We're not sure about you. Matt Boardman, Anil, Tierney, Carrie, and Faith. We appreciate all of you. And everybody at home, we appreciate you too. Keep the conversation going in the comments below if you want. And other than that, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon on the 7th rule. Always remember it.
Bye, Homer.
Bye, Homer.